I am gaming. I am gaming. I am gaming podcast.
Hey everybody, my name is Ivica. Thank you so much for being on the latest episode of I'm Gaming Podcast. This is a podcast about the video game industry, entrepreneurship, gaming nostalgia, and many more cool things I find to be in the same realm of business and creative ventures. Like always, first and foremost, a huge thanks goes to all of my Patreon supporters who make this podcast possible. Thanks to your generous donations, I'm able to write and create new episodes each week, and this is episode 151. So once more, a big thanks for sticking with I Am Gaming Podcast and keeping up with your regular donations, which is really awesome. Everyone else who would like to support me, please check out my Patreon page in the description below. Now for episode 151, I've chosen to talk about the narrative development or narrative design of a game I recently began playing, which is Warhammer 40k. Mechanicus. It's a tactical turn-based strategy which places you in the role of a controller or commander of the Adeptus Mechanicus. They're a faction from the Warhammer 40k universe which is focused on the development of technologies and appliance of those same technologies in battle against the aliens and things from the other side. Now, Warhammer is a very developed and very wide franchise with a lot of narrative elements. You have your books, you have your lore, a bunch of other stuff. All of it is pretty prominent in most games. However, I really like the fact that Mechanicus is playing upon that fact to a great degree. It's using that process of dialogues to actually do the same thing, which is very smart and very effective at the same time. Of course, there are multiple narrative elements in the game, but the main body of, let's say, narrative experience, the story arc of the game, takes place through dialogues that are between missions, where different characters set on the ship of the Adeptus Mechanicus faction, which is kind of your center base, discuss elements of the mission and changes and modifications and everything else that is taking place during the same process of actually discovering an alien world with some weird elements to it. While you do that, there are kind of conflicting points of view from different characters who discuss things, talk about them, quarrel, get into confrontations with one another. And while this is happening, you get the ability to learn what is actually taking place in the wider story of the same game. At the same time, the dialogues themselves are not voiced over, so they're simply gibberish that you hear on a voice or a volume setting, whatever you might choose it to be. It's just kind of a repetitive sound of their voices, mechanical voices, but you're actually reading the dialogues. That's very effective, cost effective for development, but it works well in terms of what the game wants to kind of do with its dialogue process. So you get basically the entire story through these dialogues and through snippets of narrative that takes place through the missions and combat itself. But in terms of narrative development, the game has a big focus on its narrative while avoiding any pitfalls of making a lot of cutscenes or pages and pages of regular text that you need to go through. You simply follow the dialogue as if you were listening or reading to a radio drama. So there, if you are learning or trying to apply a lot of narrative in your game, especially strategy game, you have to check out Warhammer 40,000 Mechanicus because it manages to do the same in a really streamlined, smart but effective manner. Dialogues, and a lot of them taking place, explaining things, but also presenting a multifaceted perspective of the same story arc, which in terms of game design and narrative design in particular is a pretty smart and pretty savvy move. So great decision by the developers who made it into a really effective solution for their game. I think there is a lot to be learned from their approach and their end result. So if you're interested in narratives, if you're interested in strategies and 40k universe, Warhammer 40k, check out Mechanicus and you'll probably enjoy it. That's all for this episode. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening. There is a bunch of ways how you can support me. If you found this useful and interesting, please consider checking out one of those, including becoming my Patreon supporter. Otherwise, the easiest and most effective way to support me is to simply subscribe and continue watching my videos. Nothing else is actually needed. However, if you do decide to support me on Patreon, big thanks, huge thanks, enormous thanks goes to you. That's all for this episode. Again, thank you so much for being here. My name is Ivica. Have a great week, and I'll see you in precisely 7 days from now. Until then, bye bye.